Where do we start? It's very apparent to the UK column team that many people are really struggling to understand the news, all of the various reports that are being thrown at them. And of course, much of what people receive is to do with a fear factor. And one of those big fear factors, of course, is to do with everything around the Ukrainian conflict and the fact that Russia apparently is going to invade Western Europe. This is how the BBC is certainly trying to reframe our minds. So today I thought we'd take a little bit of a look at how things are going in Europe. And of course, no better place to start than Germany's new Chancellor, because he's been making some pretty strong statements. The BBC, of course, likes this. New German leader signals seismic shift in transatlantic relations. Well, what was one of the key things that he said was this: my absolute priority will be to strengthen Europe as quickly as possible so that step by step we can achieve independence from the United States. So that's a pretty powerful statement. Obviously, Trump has ruffled a lot of feathers because he's talking about the need for the European nations to get on and do things themselves, particularly if they believe that they need a credible defense against the Russians. And Germany, which is in a really pitiful position at the moment economically as a result of its own sanctions against Russia and the loss, of course, of cheap energy, is now suddenly saying, well, we need to increase our game, we need to strengthen Germany, and we need to strengthen the European Union. And the implication, of course, is that that strengthening has got to be around defence. Now, I'd like to say to our audience that if you go to the UK column website and search for EU military unification, you can find many articles. These are just some of them. This is not a complete list that I'm showing you on screen. But the UK column has been warning about the dangers of the European Union attempting to create its own unified military structure. And although UK has supposedly left the European Union, something else that the UK column team have talked about on many occasions is Brexit without the exit. And that is a warning that although the population of UK has been led to believe that we're clear of the European Union, in the background, no such thing has happened. And of course, we now see Keir Starmer almost tripping over himself to get back into bed with the European Union. And that also means with that European military unification. So how does this translate? Well, of course, for the population in UK, we're now to believe we're nearly at war with the Russians, and that means we need troops, and that means conscription. Let's have a look at how Good Morning Britain dealt with the issue in speaking to Tobias Ellwood.
British Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, that's the former British Army officer Sir Richard Shirreff, has said this morning that Donald Trump has left Britain with simply no choice but to plan for conscription.
But adults in Gen Z, that's 18 to 27-year-olds, seem reluctant to be part of the efforts, with a recent YouGov poll finding only 11% would fight for Britain. We asked some of them for their thoughts on joining the front line.
I'm not trained. I can't even walk up the stairs.
If it was mandatory, obviously I'd go.
I mean, the fact that you can die for your country before you can vote, there's no incentive for young people to participate.
I don't think I'd be very useful. It's just not my vibe.
Yeah, I probably would. Come from a family of people that have served in the Royal Air Force and Army as well.
I don't think I have a good enough reason to want to give back to this country in that sense.
It just doesn't seem like something I would enjoy.
But is the matter kind of out of our hands? Is it actually time, perforce, to make national service mandatory? Former Defence Minister and Army Captain Tobias Ellwood served in Northern Ireland and Cyprus, Kuwait and Bosnia, and he says that we simply have no option but to make national service mandatory. But senior lecturer in sociology, Dr Lisa Mackenzie here, says that forcing somebody to do anything never works, and that includes conscription. All right, well, let's come to you first, Tobias, Mr Ellwood. Do you feel that the time for debate has actually passed? Is that what you're saying? That it's not really a question of opinion now, it's simply a matter of we have to get boots on the ground and therefore we have to have conscription?
Yes, I mean, that's the backdrop to this, is that we've entered a new era of insecurity. Our world is getting more dangerous, not less. Russia's aggression is rising. It's increasingly backed by China. The United States is actually dialing back from its interests in Europe, and we are increasingly vulnerable, and we must prepare. There's been a big debate about increasing defence spending to 2.5%. We can't afford to keep a large standing army. So this is all about increasing our national readiness, this latent capability that we can tap into at any time.
Well, I don't know how our audience found that. I found the scoffing of Schofield interesting there when he was he'd finished the report on the young people in UK. Do those youngsters represent UK society? Maybe, maybe not. But Tobias Ellwood, clearly the war hawk. He says we're virtually at war. We need those boots on the ground, and the only way to get them is conscription. The lady, Lisa Mackenzie, sociology, who we didn't hear, actually went on to say, well, the problem is if people are not volunteers, they're not going to work at their best for you. And she's absolutely got a point in what she said, because, of course, the military itself would say that dealing with conscripts is particularly difficult. But, of course, remember that the trouble in Europe, largely fomented by the West with the UK, to kick off that war in Ukraine. And now all of a sudden we haven't got the money. No, it's been given to Ukraine, but we've got to raise those troops. Strangely enough, though, UK column over many years has been able to report on the fact that our military infrastructure has been destroyed. Let's just have a look at this report back in 2016. This was talking about army fitness tests being rewritten to make sure female soldiers can qualify for frontline duty. That what was the result of getting the women into the military? A lot of problems, including the women being subjected to bullying and sexual assaults, which, of course, the military have tried to play down, but this is the reality of what happened. We've also seen a lot of the military infrastructure sold off, 10 military sites sold for 7,000 homes, and we were led to believe that every pound that they made by disposing of excess land will be reinvested into a defence budget that keeps Britain safe. But of course it wasn't. And yet at the same time, it was well known that the Russian military was becoming more and more capable. This is a report from 2016 where Lieutenant General Ben Hodges was saying that the Russian capability in electronic warfare was absolutely eye-watering. Now, I'd just like to jump across to another report from UK column. We're going back many, many years ago when we said if you can't understand what's happening in UK at the moment, we're being attacked. And we particularly looked at this analysis, which Christopher Story had in his book, The EU Collective. And what it said is each area of society, education, media, culture, law and order is to be attacked. Let's bring this into focus by having a look at security and to see what this analysis actually said. Well, here's the text up on screen. What it was talking about was using methods to destroy our military capability, penetration and demoralization of intelligence community, police, military, homosexuality, etc. This is all from the book. Women in the military, collectivization of military power and security. And what was the intended result from this? That there would be a degradation of intelligence quality, military power, and the recruitment pool, which is exactly what that Good Morning Britain report was talking about. Defencelessness, total unawareness of strategy, idolatry of cooperation. Think about what's happening with Europe, and the inability for the UK to act decisively and alone. And just as a further example, if we drop down here to internal politics, what was going to happen in that area? Well, let's have a look on screen. Politics was to be made aggressive, poisonous, full of antagonisms, a sense of drift, a failure to get to grips with issues, constant lying and equivocation, careerism and egoism. And what was the result? Infrastructure decay, national disunity, cynicism, posturing by the top leadership, lack of purpose, government by spin doctorate, and substance subordinated to image. And Ben, I'm going to bring you in here because to me, every time I look at this analysis, this country is under attack. The attack has been going on for years, and essentially it's to destroy our society, destroy our communities, and indeed to destroy our identity as a nation state. You've got